Hello, and welcome to Psych First Aid, where I teach you how to address mental health situations in your everyday life. During my time in mental health work, I picked up a lot of things, tricks of the trade if you will. But as anyone who has ever tried to teach their grandma how to use an iPhone will know, over time a lot of these tricks sort of become like background noise. You don't think about them, you just do them. If you find yourself confronting a problem you don't recognise or don't have the tools to fix, it can make you freeze up or get something very wrong. Mental health stuff especially might seem scary to approach for people who aren't used to it, but it's worth remembering that people have been working on how to help with these things for years. Practical tools have been created and refined many times over. That's what this series is for, giving you the practical tools you need to address mental health situations you encounter in the real world, to enable you to become a psych first aider. So with that in mind, let's start with something that many of us have come into contact with already, and in a post-COVID world, may be getting more common: panic attacks. What is a panic attack? A panic or anxiety attack is a psychosomatic event. This means it is a physical event that is related to a psychological or mental event. And there are two somewhat loose categories of symptoms that work together to make these happen. The physical stuff includes things like shortness of breath, heart palpitations, chills or flushes, shaking, headaches and dizziness, nausea, and your legs giving out. The psychological stuff includes things like fear of choking, fear of dying, fear of a heart attack, fear of losing control, and feeling disconnected from the world around you, also known as derealization. Eagle-eyed observers may have noticed a pattern in that last bit. Fear is often seen as the primary trigger for panic attacks, and most of the time, yes, it is. However, that is not the whole story. In lab conditions, it has been shown that restricting oxygen or breathing can also trigger a panic attack, a bit like a fight or flight response. If you know someone who can't swim very well, the reason they panic in the water is because their breathing is being restricted to a point that makes them uncomfortable. Same goes with people who aren't used to scuba diving as well. No matter what the cause is, once the attack starts, these two groups of symptoms form a cycle where one feeds into the other, and that feeds back into the other, and back into the other, into the other. You get the idea. These feelings get more and more intense very quickly as the loop goes round and round, usually within a few seconds, but sometimes taking a few minutes to really ramp up. The end result is what you probably already think of when you think of panic attacks: someone crying and shaking, slumped into a ball on the floor, which, if it happens in the wrong place or the wrong time, can be incredibly dangerous. It's important to remember that while one panic attack by itself is not a threat, it does put a lot of strain on the body, and going through a lot of them can lead to bigger physical health problems down the line. Now, it is not uncommon for people going through this to feel like they are actually having a heart attack. And on paper, the symptoms do line up a lot, so how can you tell the difference? The real differences are the intensity of the chest pain, the pain in the arm, usually the left arm, and the pain in the jaw. If they don't have these, they probably don't need an ambulance, but if you feel unsure, call one. Better safe than sorry, always. If they lose consciousness and become unresponsive, this is probably not a panic attack anymore and it has become a cardiac arrest. Check their pulse, call an ambulance, and perform CPR immediately. There are good CPR guides elsewhere on the internet, and it's a good idea to be familiar with that, so I'll link a couple in the description for you to look over once you're done here. So, you're pretty sure this is a panic attack and nothing more serious than that? Good. Time to be a psych first aider. Step 1. Stay calm. You know what doesn't help people stop panicking? Being surrounded by other people who are also panicking.
Ladies, please, let's not lose our heads.
Lose our heads?
There are many reasons for this, but the big one is that if you panic too, it confirms to that person that yes, there is something wrong, and yes, it's something that's worth panicking about. So even if you are worried or panicking yourself, it's important that you at least appear to be perfectly calm, at least until they are. This includes things like adopting a calm, soft tone of voice, speaking in short, clear statements, relaxed body language, smiling in a way they find comforting, of course. Don't do a rictus grin. This might seem pretty obvious, but it's easy to lose your head when you haven't seen someone having an anxiety attack before. Step 2. Remove the source of the anxiety. Panic attacks can happen for all sorts of reasons. It could be an internal train of thought, or it could be a response to something external like a phobia or a situation or even a person. With that in mind, removing the source of the anxiety is the next step. If it's a place, try a new, quieter place.
At a different time.
If it's a spider, catch and release. If the cause is you, leave. A lot of the time, people who are going through an anxiety attack will solve this issue for you. But if they don't, it's a good idea to get them away from the source of the problem and find a quiet spot with less stimulating stuff going on. Step 3. Get their attention. A huge part of the problem with anxiety attacks is concentration. In the midst of an anxiety attack, it's difficult not to focus on the unusual and surprising feelings taking place inside your body. Your heart feels like it's about to jump out of your chest and eat your soul, your breath becomes so shallow it actively hurts you, and your head swims like you're about to be sick or pass out. The fear that your body is out of control draws your attention to those feelings and makes the attack last longer. In order to combat this, it's important to get their attention focused on something that isn't internal. There are many ways you can do this. A simple "look at me" works quite well, with strong eye contact at their level of elevation. You could also draw attention to your hand by moving it slowly in front of their face. A little strange, but it works to get their attention. One thing you don't do is the slap thing. Sure, it gets their attention, but it's also a threatening action which increases the fear, not decreases it. And it comes from movies back in the day when it was still legal to slap your wife for being hysterical. So get their attention, sure, but don't go and reenact the Oscars. Once you get it, what do you do with it? The attention, I mean, not the Oscar. Step 4. Reassurance. The first thing you're going to need to do is offer simple reassurances to counteract the anxious thoughts that keep the panic attack going. You're having a panic attack, you're going to be fine. You're not going to die. Don't worry, nothing is going to hurt you. Don't worry, this happens to people all the time. We've got you. As I said before, a calm tone of voice is key here. Keep the phrasing simple and the tone soft and calm to encourage them to join you on your emotionally calm Zen cloud. Sometimes a panicking person will insist that you're wrong, that they're going to die, they're going to have a heart attack, etc. Don't worry, that's the panic talking. Check their pulse to reassure them and let them know that their heart's still in rhythm and it's still going to be fine. Just keep reassuring them until they're ready to engage in the next step. Step 5. Encourage slow, deep breathing. Part of the reason an anxiety attack is so terrifying is the feeling that you're losing control of your own body. Your heart rate is spiking out on its own, and you're hyperventilating and you feel nauseous and faint, like you might lose consciousness altogether. For this reason, part of dealing with a panic attack is to reassert control over those things. Now, while you can't control minds and you can't control your heart rate manually for complicated reasons that involve autonomic nerve clusters on the heart, you can manually control your breathing. In fact, we're pretty good at it. Imagine how difficult swimming would be if you couldn't hold your breath on command. That's why this next step is to guide the person to control their breathing, making it slow and deep as possible. Some easy ways to do this involve counting out loud, visual cues like counting on your fingers or using body language, and by joining in with the breathing yourself. In the spirit of leading by example, let's do it together now. Okay, so we're going to breathe in for 4 and out for 5. So in, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, 5. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. Repeat for as long as you need until the person begins to feel their heart rate return to normal. If they start to breathe erratically again and lose concentration, simply get their focus back on you and keep breathing with them, being calm, slow, and zen every step of the way. Now, If you're the detail-oriented type, you might have a few questions about this process. Does it have to be in for 4 out for 5? No, that's just my preferred count, really. You can use whatever you want, but it does help to make the out-breathing longer than the in-breathing, at least in my experience. Do you have to use visual cues? Not always. Sometimes people feel it easier to control their breathing with their eyes closed, but it's a good habit to get into just in case they don't. Do I have to breathe with them? It helps. The way this works is complicated. It involves a lot of different interlocking processes in the body and in the mind, including sympathetic mirror neurons and the link between the cardio and vascular system, each of which is a whole lecture by itself, and it isn't really relevant to getting your friends out of a jam. But to my mind, leading by example is always a good idea if you want to encourage people to do anything. People find it easier to believe something is possible if they can see it happening right in front of them, especially in the tunnel vision situation of an anxiety attack. So, we've calmed the person down, they're breathing normally again, and they're regaining their ability to form words. Yay! We did it! Let's go back to the party and grab a beer. Yeah, hold up, Mr. Saviour Complex. There's one thing to do first. Step 6. Aftercare. It's very normal to feel weird after an anxiety attack. Your body has just done the equivalent of a 200-meter sprint after all. Chances are the person is going to feel clammy, shaky, headachy, and a little embarrassed to boot. Now that you've done your psych first aid a bit, it's time to just be a good person, you know? Sit down with them, make sure they're feeling okay, and let them talk out their feelings for a bit. The key here is what's known as active listening. This means paying attention to what they're saying, responding with consideration, and inviting them to open up with questions and reassurances that allow them to feel okay about the situation. How are you feeling? Has this happened before? Hey, don't worry, it's okay, lots of people go through this kind of thing. Remember, be calm, be chill, be zen, and reassuring. Crack a few light jokes if you feel up to it. A good laugh can be a nice healing salve to cool down the shame associated with freaking out, going crazy, or having a moment, especially in public. If there's a lot of other people around you, be cool and lead by example to encourage coolness from the others. The less they think you care about it, the less chance of it happening again. Conclusion. Panic attacks occur for all sorts of different reasons. Some are linked directly to anxiety disorders, some to phobias, some just happen out of nowhere. They can also be traumatizing though. If someone has them often enough, just the risk of going through that again can cause people to build a safety bubble for themselves that they never want to leave. But, with the right people around to help solve the issue quickly, and with as little pain as possible, the trauma can at very least be minimized, and the long-term effects can be mitigated. Hopefully, with this guide in hand, now you can become the right people.
In their brains, they go round and round again.
Don't forget to give the video a like, the channel a subscribe, and let me know what I should do next in the comments. If you want to support the channel, you can join us on Patreon, and have yourself a wonderful day.
Oh, they